Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of the Butterfly Mindset Podcast.
Left late night, what a mess. We woke up and we're still obsessed. Can't keep it straight night and day. We keep it classy, still we stay.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of the Butterfly Mindset Podcast. Today, I have Amy Jordan with me. And I was gonna say of a certain company, but you're doing a whole rebrand and I'm actually really excited about it. So,
me too.
Can you tell me a little bit more about who you are, where you're from, and what you're doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're coming at this moment of really big change for the company that I lead. And it has been Wundacore Pilates up until literally last week when this room was gutted and renovated in 7 days.
Wow.
We flipped the studio and it is now Pilates Addiction. So currently there are 10 other Wundacore Pilates studios, and in the next few months they will be converted into Pilates Addiction studios. So it's a pretty big moment of change. We're super excited about it. As you can see, the space is gorgeous. These are still the same Wundaformers. I invented the machine I'm sitting on, but now they're gold. They're so beautiful. And so we're still doing the same workout and the same approach to movement, but just really updating our brand and elevating the experience for the clients.
I love that. No, I literally walked in, I was like, this is the prettiest Pilates studio I've ever been in.
Oh, did you hear that? Did you hear that? It really is. And that was our goal, was to take something that was really fantastic and great, but really refresh it, elevate it, and bring it into this new era of Pilates Addiction.
I love that. I love that. And so I always purposely try not to talk too much before, because I want to dive into the weeds of everything. How did you end up becoming a Pilates instructor? How did you end up becoming a Pilates studio owner? How did you get to here? What was before this?
It's definitely not a straight path, and it wasn't overnight. So for the first 12 years of my career, I was in entertainment. I was a high-powered executive. I was a senior vice president at Marvel,
Oh, wow.
Dream job by many, many standards. And I loved the work I was doing, but I didn't feel like I was giving back in a way that I really wanted to in this world. And so while I was doing that job, I started taking Pilates as a client, and I was like, whoa, wait a second, this is it. This is where I want to be. And that hobby just kind of eventually took over, and I decided to start teaching a little bit as a little side hustle just for fun. Yeah. And then I really thought, I'm going to open a studio in my hometown of Montrose, California, and I'm going to open a studio. It'll be a little side wealth building project. No way. Within about a year, I had opened a second studio and just walked away from entertainment entirely. Not the people. I still love my people from entertainment, but from the actual work. And it just created such a sense of purpose in my life. And I then continued to evolve. I was just working on regular reformers at that point. And then as a creative, right? So I had this art background. I went to art school. I really thought, I want to do more with the machine. And ignorance is bliss. I sketched it out on an airplane, just like you always hear about it happening. And then we started tinkering and making prototypes. My dad would bring wood. He's a carpenter by trade, and he would bring wood and, test out different pieces, parts. And then it became the Wundaformer, which I'm sitting on now. Wow. And so if you're familiar with Pilates machines, at the back end by you, Cyrus, is a Wunda chair, and that comes down and up during class. Then I'm sitting on the reformer part, and up here everybody has their own little ballet bar and a jump board. So this is used for low impact core and cardio conditioning. So these machines are only at Wundacore or Pilates Addiction, but that's really how it started to take off and grow and expand. And so now we have 11 studios at this moment in California, in Tennessee, New Jersey, and New York. Oh, wow. And we're on a really massive expansion plan right now as Pilates Addiction.
That's exciting. That's super exciting. I want to touch base on so much in that little thing. I'm going to go back to first, executive at Marvel.
Yes.
What was that? A lot of people, I feel like a lot of people, they have these ambitions and these passion projects that they want to do. And I think the hard thing is everybody's always telling you this is the right way to go, right? So for instance, you're an executive. You should be an executive. You should say you got this amazing job. Yes. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Why would you ever look over here? Just stay focused over here. what was that process like, deciding to go from like an executive at a huge company to like, oh, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur?
In a small Pilates studio in a small suburb of Los Angeles. It was a kind of crazy process because I did get so much of that feedback like, hey, is that really a great thing to do? Hey, you've got this amazing thing happening over here. But I knew it in my soul, and I always try to trust that small voice, that inner knowing inside of you where, no, this is something that I want for the rest of my life. That I didn't have children at the time. I was young in that job. I was 30 years old, and again, enjoying it, but knowing that this actually lit me up. This really lit me up to watch people walk out stronger, taller, feeling better in their own skin. And that's my guiding vision. And that's how it just kind of took over. And people from entertainment would say, you opened a yoga studio? Like, what are you doing? Well, I heard, is it Pilates? What is that? It was back when no one knew really what it was. It was 2008. And even my first landlord, was kind of scratching his head. He and his wife took me to coffee, and they're like, what's your collateral? How are you going to like support this lease? And I was like, I'll call my uncle if I need money, which was absolutely not true. But that was all I had for collateral at that moment. And he said, you know what? I see success written on your forehead. I'm going to take a chance on you. And that studio has been in operation since 2008.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was a good bet. I'm glad he bet on me, and I'm really glad that I bet on myself. Yeah. Because it created a life not only of purpose and passion, but also one that allowed me to achieve my other goals of being really present in my children's lives. 100%. And being able to have a fluid and flexible schedule where I can do something that lights me up, something that generates income and opportunity, as well as spend really quality and meaningful time with my kids. Yeah, that's so interesting. It's an interesting thing. Where did that come from? So you're 30 years old. You're like, I'm going to bet on myself. Like, was that your dad? Was that your parents? Like, where did that come from? Because that's a hard thing to do, especially as a 30-year-old that's an executive at a company, to be like, where you're at like this beginning of the rest of your life. It's a really hard thing to step out of. It truly was, and I don't. It's like an identity issue, right? Absolutely, and what is wrapped up in your work is your identity, and it was a very big change, a little bit jarring. And I don't come from a ton of money. My parents were both teachers and incredible salt of the earth humans, but it wasn't like I had a trust fund or something to fall back on. Yeah. And I actually did have a meet up with my uncle the day before I signed my lease. I just thought of this story recently. And I was like, I'm really worried, it's $150,000, like the value of the lease, and buying some machines at the time. And he was like, listen, he's like, if this goes not well at all, if this goes totally bad, you lose all of that investment, it's not going to end your life. You're going to maybe go back to entertainment, get a similar job, and be able to, chip away or dig out of, that hole. He's like, $150,000 will not end your life or end your career. And he's like, go for it. And I really took that advice to heart, because my parents did absolutely believe in me and support my decisions wholeheartedly. But also having that little extra little drop of support from my uncle, who is an entrepreneur. And he was able to kind of give me that perspective, and it was a really helpful way for me to, jump into it and trust. Yeah, 100%. It's always so interesting. I believe like success breeds success, and I believe like different people's experiences are how we learn. You learn from experiences in life, but they don't need to be your own. Right? So it's always interesting to see these stories play out. So you open your first studio, 2008, and then it's like, then how did you get to Studio 2? Where was that timeline? That was in 2009, so not quite 18 months later was a second studio in Pasadena. Relatively pretty quickly. Yeah. Montrose was going great. Pasadena took off, but Pasadena was another moment of courage because, $150,000 again, right? To open this next store, and a larger staff now, because now I can't teach in both places. And I went down to $217 in my bank account. Wow. Razor thin cushion as you can have. And again, bet on myself.
Yeah.
And I just kept continuing to bet on myself. But now I had the support of a team. And so I was also betting on the really tremendous talents of my team. And so I was able to do that. That studio took off. And then it happened again when I decided I'm going to make my own machines. I'm going to come up with this new concept. I'm going to come up with a new brand and a new approach to movement, because what we do here is unlike anyone else, because we thread the needle and like right in the center of traditional Pilates that's been done for 100 years. It's kind of slow. It can be a little cerebral. Okay. And then we have like super high impact, quick, fast, and just intensity for the sake of being intense. And we're in the middle where we've got the high energy, we've got the good pace, you're sweating buckets, but we're really focused on anatomy. So this new lane was something that so many people were like, dude, you've got 2 successful studios. So everyone's forgotten about entertainment at this point.
Yeah, because now you're crushing it
now
over here.
Now you're crushing it over here. Your studios are packed. You've got a great team. What are you doing? Why are you sending away what works and going and, again, betting on yourself? And I just knew that this is what I wanted to bring to people. I wanted to not only help you look great from the outside in, I wanted you to feel great from the inside out. And that's really what we're focused on here.
That's amazing. So first 2 studios were normal Pilates studios. And so you did a rebrand then when you switched, and now you're doing another rebrand now.
Somebody said to me last week, like, well, it's not every day that you launch a brand. And they're like, well, maybe for you. I was like, yeah, a little, because I've also launched the Wundacore product line, which is here beside me. And these are inventions that I use then for a global audience where we work out together online. And these work even if you're working out in a traditional gym. And what they do is these tools connect you to your core and help keep your body aligned in the way that I can do for you here. If we're in person, I can make sure your knees are safe. I can make sure that your core is engaged while you're doing squats, while you're doing planks. And these tools essentially replace my hands when we're not in the same room together.
That's amazing. So what does that look like to take an idea, a thought process, write it down on a napkin in a plane or wherever, right? And then create it and make it a reality, but not just reality, but a reality where you're multiplying it over and over. Like, what does that process look like?
It's no joke, that's for sure. I first started with just a couple mechanical engineers taking stabs at drawings. I was 3 months pregnant with my son when I found a manufacturer, the one that I have ended up using for the machines since then. So that would have been in 2010. And so they're located in Santa Clarita here in Southern California. Oh, wow. So I literally walked in with some, like rough drawings, like, hey, can you make this for me? And again, they're like, what's a pilates? We'll try, but what's a pilates? And so the first prototype of this machine came off the factory floor when I was like 39 weeks pregnant with my son. So I'm out there testing it pregnant. The fellas in the shop are like, whoa, what's happening here? And from there, like I said, my dad helped me tinker with it. Multiple engineers that I've worked with that's something I learned through the process is you have to rely on experts. I can sketch it. I understand what it needs to feel like, but I certainly can't create drawings or build it. So we worked with them. And then really just over time have continued refining the machines, literally the wheels, the cranks, the springs, all the things that we're working with. We continue to refine it with the goal of scaling and continuing to grow and repeatability so that we can do and lead a massive expansion for Pilates Addiction.
That's amazing. It's one thing, like, I think I always talk about there's 3 steps to accomplish anything in life, and it's like visualize, map it out, and then execute. And I think there's so many people that are visualizers. Like, there's so many people that are like, oh, I have this idea, right? And they draw it on the napkin, and that's where it stays.
Yes.
And then maybe that napkin goes and ends up in the trash or whatever, or they find it years later. They're like, oh my gosh, this was the idea I had, but now it's already out, right?
And then you see it, right? I totally agree. And there's a concept from Elizabeth Gilbert. There's a book called Big Magic. And the concept is that a muse or inspiration will come and tap you on the shoulder, and you'll draw it on a paper, or you'll sculpt it, or you'll do whatever you're doing to get your idea out. But once you don't take action, then that muse or inspiration is going to leave and tap someone else. And that's what you see 2 years from now. And I'm actually lucky with these blocks. It was one of the worst mistakes I've ever made in business. I had one that my daughter and I had carved with a bread knife, and she had painted it that looks very similar to this. And it sat on a shelf for 2 years because I was focused on the businesses. At the time it was COVID, right? So all the businesses were closed in the places we were operating in at the time. And at the time I was battling cancer. And so this project just kind of got set off to the side. Like, spoiler alert, I'm great, I'm cancer free, miracles abound, but it just sat on this shelf. And so within the last year, I pulled it back off the shelf, and now we are patent pending on the block as well. So
that's amazing.
It's important to take that action because it is so easy, even for an inventor who's made multiple inventions with the ring and the Wundaformer, to still sit on something. And I'm working on a home model machine right now that's going to incorporate multiple Pilates apparatuses into one. And that also has been sitting on paper, same reasons, but I could call them excuses, with being sick and being closed for COVID. But now I'm right back in that mindset of take action, get moving so that we can help. Again, my guiding vision for all of this, how can I help as many people feel amazing inside their own skin as possible?
I love that. Yeah, my brother told me, I remember it, you know what, I think about it all the time. I mentioned it to my brother the other day, I think it was 3 weeks ago, I mentioned it to him. I was like, hey, because I talked to my team one day about it or something. And I was like, my brother told me when I was younger, he was like, if you have an idea, there's someone else that has the same exact idea at the same time. It just depends on who goes and gets it first, right? And so I told my brother, he's like, probably just said that to mess with you, But in my mind, it was like...
It was gold. This was gospel. He's telling you the truth.
I got to execute, And so, I said, this visualization, then it's the mapping out, it's the figuring out who's going to do it. But then I think the most important piece for any invention, any project, any idea is execution, right? Mm-hmm. And you've found a way to execute, even though you can also find excuses very easily. What pushes you to execute when you really don't have to?
Gosh, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that before. I would definitely say that it is that driving vision of, okay, so I made these machines and we're expanding these studios, but we're still missing millions, if not billions of people who can't get to a physical space. Okay, enter the Wundacore product line. Now these can ship worldwide, and we can, I had people from Brazil on a workout with me last week, and I know there's people in Europe and Israel and all over the place that are working with us online. And so that then expanded it there, and then adding more products, expand it again. And now we're working on building a franchising model out for Pilates Addiction. But what happens now for the actual execution is an incredibly talented team.
Yep.
So yes, I'm an inventor, and I'm kind of driving the development and driving the vision of what's next. But to actually execute, it requires an incredible team, a loyal team, a smart team, a flexible team, people that are dynamic and really ready to change and roll with what we've got in the future. But that execution is absolutely reliant on the people that are around me and have a shared vision of how can we bring more studios into the world? How can we bring more products into the world?
Yeah.
And we're working together to make that happen because it's simply not possible for me to do it by myself.
100%. This is a thing that I think so many entrepreneurs, when I consult with a bunch of different companies, it's always how to hire, how to scale, all of these items. What do you look for when you're trying to find someone to fill a certain position for your team?
I look most primarily is for how I can get my time back. What role is going to have the highest efficiency as far as me getting more time back to do what I can do?
Yeah.
No one else can invent a Pilates product, but in this company, that's my kind of very specialized skill, where there are lots of people who teach an incredible class. right? I handed over marketing a few years ago to a director in the company who took it and ran with it and did beautifully. There are skill sets that maybe I have, but that can be handed over to another talented team member rather than me trying to do it all. Like, I don't believe in juggling. I don't believe in balancing. I believe in like really making these silos of your time instead of trying to juggle it all and letting experts do what they shine in, including myself, which is hard to do as an entrepreneur, especially when you're, starting out and it's kind of scrappy. But we all do lots of roles in this company, myself included, right? But in order for me to be able to scale and grow, I have to hand over and trust that the team
100%.
is going to take that and do as good or better than I was doing.
100%. I mean, it's so important to like be able to, I know this. So, when I go and hire somebody, let's say it's in, I don't know, the paperwork, right? Like, I know how to do the paperwork, but now I can call Kathy and she knows contracts better than anybody else.
Right.
Because she now is specializing in that space. So
and that's where her brain is focused, and she's not bouncing around from calling back a client to writing a contract to going and doing an open house or whatever it might be. If everyone can get really focused, or even for parts of their day, is the way that we try to organize it around here, is that we try to organize it like, okay, I'm going to be working on client retention for this portion of my day. We have a shoot and it's this portion of the day. So you're not trying to have hands on all the things, and instead really trying to get your time kind of blocked out and really efficiently organized so 100%. That we can wear more than one hat, but not at the same time.
I love that. Yeah. And the mentor of mine told me a long time ago, which is very much where you sit. Excuse me. Mentor of mine told me a long time ago, which is very much where you sit, is the leader of the company is supposed to be the creative. And you need space to create. Like, I think that's the most important piece. Like, a lot of entrepreneurs, they get so stuck in working in the business versus on the business. And I'm seeing you as you're having the conversation, is you're so much about the top level, the creative side of it, and let the people that do what they do best do what they do best. And that's every successful company that I see, every successful leader that I see, it's the same thing over and over again. And I'm a big believer in success breeds success. So like, I love to hear what you're saying, because it's the same thing I hear over and over again for highly successful individuals.
Absolutely. And that's when I was able to take these blocks off the shelf. Was because I learned, in time to continue delegating so that I could open up that free space and really drive the vision versus driving operations or driving classes, and I still love to teach. Like, it just is right in my soul. I absolutely love it, but I cannot do it in the way that I was when we started. When 100%. I first opened, I was teaching 42 hours of class a week, like a ridiculous amount of classes a week, super ridiculous. And then it's just over time had to shrink because we're growing and providing opportunity for other incredible educators to get out there and do that job, or the marketing or whatever it might be.
I love that. You kind of mentioned it like, oh yeah, no big deal. But like, you mentioned you had cancer during, was it COVID?
During COVID, yeah.
What was that experience like, being a business owner, going through COVID, first of all, where like your business is in person? It's not like...
And shut down overnight, because at the time we only operated in New York City and Los Angeles. So overnight, all revenue stopped.
Wow.
And my children were at LAUSD, so overnight, I was a homeschool teacher. Not a very good one, I will let you know. Know your strengths, people, that is not mine. So we're already going through that. I've now converted my home into a studio. So I'm trying to teach live classes every day. And I knew I wasn't feeling great, but I'm thinking, oh, COVID blues, everyone's stressed out. There's no revenue coming in. This is a really difficult moment. And then in June of 2020, I was diagnosed with a really rare and aggressive cervical cancer. And so it felt like just all of this just piling on and piling on.
Yeah.
And it was an incredibly arduous journey, but it was also pretty finite. In about 7-8 months, I was done with all of the treatment, all of the multiple surgeries, everything, and came out cancer-free and now stronger than ever. I had not one strand of hair on my head. Like
That's amazing.
I
Wow.
was incredibly frail and thin. Wasn't able to hold a plank, wasn't able to do all of these things that I normally would do. And to the best of my ability, I would teach online, you know, in kind of that in-between season of, you know, before surgery or in between chemo when you feel okay for a couple days. I would try to teach online because I felt it was so important to show people what a health crisis looks like and that you can still move.
Wow.
Because I genuinely believe that movement heals. And I love your whole thrust about the butterfly effect and your butterfly hat, because during that process, I talked a lot about caterpillar soup. Have you ever heard that concept?
Yeah.
So where you're disintegrating and everything's dark and terrifying and scary, but only after that process can you emerge into something totally new. And that really was what it felt like. It felt dark. It felt isolated. There were many times I was at the hospital for a week or weeks and no visitors could come because it's COVID time. And it was scary. There was no guarantee that I was going to come out the other side. In fact, I was advised by my oncologist and my therapist, God bless them both. They are both carried me through this process. And they said, you cannot promise your kids you're going to get through this. That's how really dire the situation was. And so I had to make really difficult statements to my babies. They were in kindergarten and third grade.
Wow.
They're so small. And I had to say to them, like, you know, mommy promises to do her best work and the doctors promise to do their best work. It makes me emotional because it was the only thing we could promise. And I didn't want to promise something that I couldn't deliver on.
Yeah.
And then miracles abound. And I sit here with you today.
I love that. You're amazing.
It was a journey, that's for sure.
I mean, life is a journey, right? Like it's like these I think it's such an inspiration to see, like, you know, there's so many ways you can go, right? Like when this happens, you can go right, you can go left. And like when you go to the right, maybe it's continuing to do the movements, having those tough conversations, going through this, like, and just continuing to try to push and do your best, or like left and saying like, I can't do any of this. Life sucks, it's hard, and that's what it is. I think it's all perspective. Like
100%, even related to the cancer journey.
Yeah.
I never looked up the statistics. Only years after I was cancer-free did I find out there were single-digit survival rates. Now my friends, you know, hysteria makes sense. At the moment I wasn't sure. But I chose to not look up WebMD, not dive into, you know, online research, because I knew it wasn't going to be great. I knew it was very rare. And it also, to your point about having vision and then taking action and then executing on that vision, that's really how I handled not only my business, but also the cancer journey. Like, okay, my vision is, my goal is to stick around for myself and for my children. That was my primary goal.
Yeah.
And my goal is to do everything in my power to accomplish that. So I kept moving. I genuinely believe movement heals. I really got very heavy into meditation. I now meditate daily, envisioning health and vibrancy on the other side of this, but then also taking action. So I didn't only say like, oh, I really hope this all works out. I did both Eastern and Western routes of, you know, approaching healing. And then the execution of just really battling through the very difficult days that I had to get through. And I looked at them as one breath at a time, because it was so overwhelming to think like I've got months ahead of me or even days ahead of me.
It's such a trip, because I've been through a lot of ups and downs in my life. You've been through a lot of ups and downs in your life. And I think that from outside in, sometimes people don't see that, right? And we actually talked about it right before about, you know, being in middle school and like these, you know, as the kids are in middle school and it's like this awkward stage and you think you're the only one dealing with it, but it's so much like life is like, I think it's so important to remember that no matter what, everyone is always dealing with something. And we don't know what that something is sometimes, you know, and for you to be able to share your story about like, you know, from first of all, where you came from as far as, you know, an executive in with Marvel, to owning a Pilates studio, to becoming an inventor that executes on her things, and then dealing with this health journey, you know, to where you're at now, where you have how many studios?
There's 11 right now with like pretty rapid expansion planned very soon.
11 studios, going through another rebrand. It's amazing to see the growth. It's very much the butterfly effect, right? It's very much this
absolutely
like it's painful at first, but at the outside on the back end, like there is a lot of growth if you choose to see that.
And if you choose to show up with resiliency.
Yes.
Because we do all get knocked down. We do all have diagnoses or experiences that we would not prefer or maybe
Correct.
would not have chosen, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I wanted to impart to my kids through that whole process was resiliency, and they also were incredibly resilient through the process. And we still, of course, all have leftover scars and traumas from it, but those are addressed and attended to, you know, with transparency and open discussion about it, because we can't change what happened, but we can just show up how we want to be in the present and in the future version of ourselves.
That's amazing. You're such a good mom too.
Amazing. I love them babies.
So we've talked about kind of like, you know, where you came, where you're at right now. Like, what's this rapid expansion? Like, what's the big picture? What's your plan? What's your idea for what you've been building?
So the next vision for the studios is that I am now working with an incredibly talented franchising team who have come in and said, like, we're going to help make this what it needs to be. Their phrase was, this is the best kept secret in Pilates, and that's ridiculous. Let's change that. So we are in the process of setting up all the paperwork and all of the things to do that. Should be available within the next few months to franchise. And so that's really one of the big goals. And then I will continue to own my set of studios. So I will be doubling my studio count, which is very exciting. Mostly in the areas that I operate now of like the New York, Nashville, and Southern California. And then the goal is to continue inventing products with the Wundacore line, because again, that's something that I can just reach so many more people with, being digital and being physical products that you can have shipped to your house. And then I'm so pumped about the expansion of the home machine, because, you know, this is a little bit big for most people's homes. And just the way that I'm approaching it is like something that's never been done before. Everyone just kind of shrinks it down, or they fold it up, or they push it under the bed. And this is going to be just, I can't tell any details about it, but it's a totally industry disruptor about how we are going to bring the functionality of beautiful Pilates equipment and movement into your home and make it absolutely stunning.
Wow, I love that. I'm excited.
Yeah, you're going to need one for sure.
I've never even used one yet. You know?
You got to come back.
I know. So, okay, I have a couple more questions. One of them, where can people find you if they want to connect with you? Yes,
so I'm on Instagram at Amy Jordan Official, and there's also at My Pilates Addiction. Right now it's at Wundacore Pilates as well. Those two pages will merge.
Yeah.
And then for the product line, it's at Wundacore. And right now, because I'm so happy to speak to you and to talk to your audience, we have a code for all of the Wundacore product. It's Cyrus, all caps.
Oh, perfect.
And it'll be 15% our product line, whatever they want to grab. That's at Wundacore.com.
I love that. Can you spell that?
Yes, WUNDACORE.com.
I love that. Code Cyrus. Look at that.
Look at that. You're a code. You're a promo code. You've made it.
Yeah, exactly. And then my next question I have for you is, I'm actually going to ask you two more questions. I usually only like wrap it up with one, but I'm going to ask you two questions. The first question is someone is a executive, a professional, something that they were told they should be, and they worked really hard to get to. And it was a lot of work, but they want to follow their passion in some other realm. What's one piece of advice you would give them to do that?
I would recommend that they get started. So if your passion is about butterflies, okay, you want to work with butterflies somehow, go start volunteering or working in research or something of the sort for a butterfly exhibit or a butterfly restoration project or something of the sort. Get involved in the community or in the work that you want to do, because that's going to open all these doors to people who are doing work in that industry. And then maybe it becomes a part-time job or a side thing or just something that you're volunteering for, but it's getting you invested into something that lights your soul up, which is going to reflect back onto the other job you're doing with you being a more positive and grounded human being, because you're still participating in that work, but getting invested into that community, into that work, is going to provide a lot more realistic opportunities for you to make it a career or make it a job or start your own butterfly sanctuary.
I love that. So get started, do something, get involved. Okay, and then my next question is, and I think like this is a more specific question, but I think you have a very unique experience. Is someone's dealing with some incredible health issues, whatever it be, or they have a family member dealing with it. What's a piece of advice you would give them to get through that?
To the best of your ability, I truly believe movement heals. It was so impactful for my experience. And some days you can't move. Some days I was not able to move, but I was moving my breath around my body with intention. I was doing things like even, we call it leg slides in the bed, where you're like laying in the bed and you're just able to like extend your leg and bring it back. It doesn't always have to be the most intense workout to actually heal you, because it's going to connect you back inside of your own skin. And it's going to get your head out of this kind of potentially doomsday or potentially, pain focused or just, kind of negativity focused. And just moving and getting your blood flowing and being grateful for your body having taken you through, even to this point. Your body's still serving you. It's still taking you through to this point. I think that it's a really powerful way to serve your spirit and very potentially your health as well.
Amazing. I appreciate you so much for making time and allowing us into your new studio.
This is the first podcast we've recorded here. I'm so excited. Awesome. Yes.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on. I thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate it.
My honor to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you.